If you were going to build the house of your dreams, would you hire a boutique building designer? Or would you go and look for perhaps a more mainstream project builder? Or would you hire a public servant? Someone who's a human resources consultant who works in the Australian Taxation Office with absolutely no building experience. Well, I found myself in that situation just 22 years ago. And, well, that public servant was me. And I hired myself. Yep, that's right, the house of my dreams, the house that I built 22 years ago, I built myself. I built it with the help of my 70-year-old apprentice, my dad, with absolutely no building experience and no idea what the ultimate project would cost on completion. So, you know, I learned some interesting stuff along the way about building, but more importantly, I learned about relationships. And you could say my house has been built by relationships. And as the years passed by, I started to think about what I did during that build, and I realized that I actually had a relationship model that I could use to get into relationship quickly with people in order to get what I needed to help me with my build. And in fact, that led on to me securing my roof for half price, getting my bricks at an amazing price, getting my plumbing supplies at a price that when I showed the quote to my plumber, he winced and said, "How the hell did you do that?" And really it was about the relationship that I made with these people as I went along. And so today I want to share with you how to quickly get into relationship. And I'm not going to talk about the long-term business relationship. I'm going to talk about the initial phase where we meet someone and we engage with them and we know deep down that we probably could do business with this person. We want to take this relationship further. So I'm going to talk about the initial phase. And like any good builder, I need some tools, or I'm going to share the tools that I learned about with you today. And in fact, there are 3 tools that I want to share with you. So, of course, let's get in the groove though, because I did actually bring with me my tool belt. And this is the hat that I wore every day during the build. And here's the tool belt and the tools that I used during the project. And I want to share with you the first of my tools, and I kind of liken it to my hammer. And the first of the tools is you have to focus on them 100%, not you. And think about it, when you're using this hammer, you've got to focus. Now there's my house, that's it under construction. All of those frames we hand nailed together. So we bought a pre-nailed frame, so the frames arrived in chunks and we had to stand them up and join them together. So they're all hand nailed, and you've got to focus. When you're nailing, if you aren't focused, you can cause some real damage, as I learned when I split my thumb almost into 2 pieces one day when I missed. My focus wasn't right. So think about this, when you go to an event, when you come to something like this, I went and spoke to a couple of people in the audience before you came into the room. And think about it, when we meet someone at an event, have you ever had this happen to you? You're talking with somebody and you notice that you're talking to them, but they're not focused on you. And in fact, their eyes are darting around the room. They're looking and they're thinking about who else that they can talk to. They're looking to see who else is in the room and figuring out who they're going to talk to next, because you know what, maybe you're not so interesting after all. And so what I suggest to you is typically, you know, when we meet someone for the first time, what do? We shake hands. We normally say our name, hello, I'm Lindsay Adams. And then what's the next question we would typically ask? What do you reckon? It's going to be something like, so what do you do? So what brings you here? And so that we open up the conversation to go further. Now, what I'm suggesting that you do in the next step is to use what I call clever questions. So clever questions are those questions which are open-ended and open up the conversation. And so if we say things like, hello, nice to meet you, yes, what do you do? and they say, well, I'm a nuclear physicist, and you go, that's interesting. That's going to close down the conversation very quickly, isn't it? So we've got to ask an open-ended question. So you might say something like, wow, tell me more about that. How did you come to choose that career path? So you're going to ask an open-ended question to get them to talk about themselves. And here's a little tip. If you want to get into a relationship with someone, it's got to be an 80-20 conversation. So that means 80% of the conversation's about them, 20%'s about you. So you've got to ask them questions to get them talking. So the good old 80-20 rule. And I love what I call the EST question. The EST are using questions with words that end in EST. Biggest, longest, hardest, most excitingest. Okay, you got the idea. So I was talking to Quentin, Doria Media, one of our sponsors, and he designs websites. Free plug, Quentin, you owe me $5. And he was talking to me about his website stuff, and I said, so tell me, Quentin, what's the hardest website you've ever developed? What's the biggest project you've ever developed? Do you get the idea? So think about these EST words that you can use. Now, if all else fails and you're stuck, use my fail-safe line. Wow, that's interesting. Tell me more. So you're going to lead them, get them to talk so that they you're focused on them. Now, I'm up on the roof one day and this car drives in the driveway. And I look at my dad and I said to him, who the hell's that? And he goes, I don't know. And I go, oh, bloody pesky salesman, I bet. So I climb down off the ladder and this guy jumps out of the car and he says, hi, I'm Steve from Steve's Plumbing Supplies. I go, g'day, Steve. And I thought, no, I've got to do the right thing here. And I focused on him 100%. And I got him talking. And it turns out Steve used to be a carpenter. But he couldn't carpent anymore. Is that a word? He couldn't do building anymore because he hurt his back. So he'd gone into sales. And so he's asked me about the project. And I focused on Steve and I got his story. And then he said to me, so you're a builder, you're a carpenter. I said, no, I'm a public servant. He goes, oh, well, who's that guy over there? I said, that's my dad. He said, oh, so he's the carpenter. I said, no, that's my dad. He said, well, who's the builder around here? I said, I don't know. I guess it must be us. And we were so focused on the conversation that Steve got to the part of the conversation. He said, well, can I give you a quote on your plumbing supplies? And I said, sure, absolutely. But Steve, I've got to warn you, I'm in the habit of getting a really red hot price on the quotes. So you better sharpen your pencil before you write the final number on the bottom line. Well, Steve came back to me a week later with the best quote that I could not beat it anywhere. And again, as I said in the intro, showed it to my plumber and his jaw dropped to the ground. He said, how the hell did you get that price? It was because I focused on Steve and I engaged in the relationship 100%. So the second tool in my toolkit here is my carpenter's pencil. Now these things are pretty common, you'd agree? And that really leads me on to the second tool for you in your building relationships quickly is to find the common ground. And by the way, that's my dad in the photo. He's got a bandage on his head because I dropped a lump of timber on him and split his forehead open. My dad's he's a trooper. We were holding up a frame at the time, nailing it up. A bit of timber fell down and blood's dripping to the ground. He took his hat off and I swear I could see the bone. So Dad gets out his handkerchief, puts it here and gets his hat and he goes, bangs it down. And he says, come on, we'll finish this first. So we finished nailing the frame back up before he worried about the gash on his forehead. That's the next day. He was back at work at 7 a.m. the next day. I love my dad. Today, ladies and gentlemen, he's 92. Next week, he'll be 93 years old. How about that? So you've got to find the common ground. What's common between you and the other person you're talking to? Now, I got on a plane one day when I was still working in the tax office. I took long service leave to do the build, but just before, I flew to Canberra. It's Monday of a long weekend, and I jump on the plane, and I sit beside this guy. And me being me, I introduce myself. Hi, I'm Lindsay. So the guy introduces himself. We start chatting, and I said, so what do you do? He said, oh, I'm the state sales manager for Austral Bricks. And I go, bricks? And I said, amazing, I'm building a house. And he went, wow. And the common ground for us was bricks. And so we talked about bricks, how you build with them, how you lay them, how you break them, how you make them, how you colour them, how you fire them. And I was just so intrigued with the whole brick making process. Now, when the plane landed and we stood up to leave the plane, he pulls down the overhead locker, gets his briefcase out, and he takes out a business card and he gives it to me. And he says, when you're ready, give me a call. Now, naively, I didn't know what he was talking about. And I said, what do you mean? He said, when you're ready for your bricks, give me a call. I'll look after you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I had no inkling of doing business with this guy, but I called him up. I went and saw him. We had picked out a brick that was going to fit our budget. And we said, oh, we were interested in this brick here. He said, no, you don't want that brick. He said, you want this brick. I said, but hang on a minute, that's the top of the range. We can't afford that. He says, I said I'd look after you. He gave me a red hot price. My bricklayer bought all of his bricks exclusively from this company. Even he couldn't buy them at the price that I got them. Again, I focused 100% on the conversation and we established the common ground. We got into a relationship and I got my bricks at a red hot price. Similarly, I went along to kindy. Now, my son was 5 years old, my daughter was 7 when we built the house. I go along to kindy one night and my son used to have a playmate in the playground at kindy, Bernie. Now, so I met Bernie's dad, and by the way, Bernie was a girl, Bernadette. And I met Bernie's dad, his name was Moose. Don't ask me how he got that name. But he's a big guy anyway. So Moose says to me, I hear you're building your own house. I said, yeah, that's right. He said, what sort of roof are you doing? I said, corrugated iron. He goes, right, well, when you're ready, call me. And I had this kind of naive look come across my face again. And I said, sorry, what do you mean? He said, you do know I deliver roofing iron for a living. When you're ready, call me. And I got my roof for half price. Moose looked after me. We were in relationship and the common ground was our kids playing together in the kindy playground. So think about, how do I focus on someone 100%? What's the common ground? What do we have in common here that we can talk about that will deepen and strengthen our relationship? The next thing, the next tool, and have a look at this one. This is my tape measure. This is a family heirloom. Now, this is the tape measure I used to build the house. Unfortunately, the bit on the end's broken off and the tape measure doesn't work anymore, but I treasure this. I'm never giving this away. And so this is part of the Adams Family Museum. But the tape measure, it served me well. And what you have to do, ladies and gentlemen, is serve your relationship partner in the conversation. And by that I mean you have to look and find a way to create a mutual outcome. And the simple way of service is to do something for them. So whenever I meet and talk with somebody, I'm thinking about how do I serve them? Now, where's my mate Graham from Toastmasters in the audience? Give me a wave, Graham, right there in the middle. Have a look at Graham, ladies and gentlemen. Graham's a Toastmaster. I met him outside and I went and had a chat with him. I focused 100% on him and we have something in common. Graham loves making speeches and he's a Toastmaster. Toastmasters do it for fun and pleasure, and I'm a member of the organisation called National Speakers Association. We do it for fun and profit. And we found the common ground and I said to Graham, have you heard of National Speakers? It's kind of, if you're thinking of taking your speaking career to the next step and doing this for money, then you need to join National Speakers. And so what I was doing was looking for a way to serve Graham. And so I've given him a business card. He's going to drop me an email. I'll put him in contact with the people in Auckland, and so he can go along to the monthly meeting. You see, I'm always thinking about how can I serve someone else. Want to come out for coffee with me? Would love to. You know what? When it comes time to pay the bill, I always get my wallet out first. It's a simple way of serving someone else. There's a great book to read. It's called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, written by a guy called Robert Cialdini. He's an Italian-American psychologist. And in the book, he talks about the 6 laws of influence, the second law of which is the law of reciprocity. And he's studied and proven this, that if you help other people, they will help you in return. Now, one of the examples he talks about in his book are the Hare Krishna. And he watched and studied them in America, and the Hare Krishna would approach you at an airport and offer you the gift of a flower. And then after you had the flower in your hand and you said thank you, they would say, would you please make a small donation of some coins to our cause? And 99.9% of people gave them money. Now, 99.9% of people may not have given them money happily, but they still gave them money. And it's the law of reciprocity. If I give you something, you will give me something in return. Now, I try to do it a different way. I try to give without the thought of receiving back immediately. Because, and I'm not sure what your spiritual beliefs are, but I know that if I serve other people, if I give, then the universe will give back to me. And that's been proven to me time and time and time again. I mentioned the National Speakers Association. In 1998, I joined. I was working for the Brisbane City Council as a public servant. I joined this organisation thinking that I'd like to start a speaking career. I had no idea what I was going to speak on. And for the first 18 months, I would attend the meetings, and I was like a big sponge, soaking up the learning. And I wish we had TEDx back then. You know, people would approach me at the meeting and say, so Lindsay, what do you speak about? And I'd go, you know what? I'm actually just a public servant. You know, one day I want to be a speaker. Well, eventually in the year 2000, I set off on that journey, and so many members back then served me by helping me, by giving me information, by sharing, by guiding me, that I benefited immensely. And what I've done with that organisation since is I served as my local chapter president in Brisbane, Queensland. And then I served as the national president in Australia in 2006, 2007. And then in 2009, 2010, I served as the international president. And by serving and helping other people, I have received so much back. And so in terms of a relationship, find a way to serve someone. So when we go to the next break, what I want you all to do is I want you to go and talk to someone you've never met before. And you're going to focus on them 100%, not you. You're going to find some common ground, and you're going to listen carefully to what they do and think about, how could I serve this person? Maybe you know someone that they need to meet. Maybe you know something that you could share with them. Maybe you've read a book that you know that they would benefit by reading. And so it's really about finding the mutual outcomes. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. There's the finished product. This is probably about 2 months after we moved in. This is the kind of the formal end. That's the front door of the house. It's a boomerang-shaped house. I don't know whether you concentrate on the plan at all, but you can see, you know, the bare basics are there. We're living in the house now. I've got some grass. We're setting up the gardens, and it's all pretty much go. So literally, that house I built by relationship. And it was only after looking back in retrospect that I understood what I did. And have a look at this. This is the final approval sticker from the Pine River Shire Council, the council area in which I live. And look at this. It's quite interesting, isn't it, that it says permit number, inspection date. Look at that, 16th of July 1993. Inspection type final. There's the signature of the building inspector. And look at his comments. That's amazing. Wow. Look at that. His advice to you: if you want to build a house, or better still, if you want to build a relationship, you want to further your career in your office, you want to build your business, you want to increase your share in your marketplace, then here's what you're going to do. Are you going to go to a seminar? Are you going to read a book? Or will you follow the 3 simple tools of relationship building? Tool number 1, focus on them 100%, not you. Tool number 2, find the common ground. And tool number 3, look for ways to serve. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you well in your journey, in your relationship construction journey.